Well, hello there and welcome to my little arty corner of the internet. It's Monday the 3rd of January, which means it's day 3 of the Fragments of Your Imagination challenge on the 7F5R challenge Facebook group. And today, it's not today's fragment at all, because yesterday when I did, which fragment was it yesterday? Or Poke Leaf. Apparently that was the fragment for day 5 in the list, but apparently it doesn't matter what order I do things in. So it's just day 3 and I'm doing day 2's fragment because I thought, oh, what could I do with this one? Like I always do, you think, what can we do with this? And I've come up with a page of what I could do with this. As usual, I did actually record drawing all of this, but I was off camera so often, I've decided to come back and perhaps do things in a different way. So I'm sure you'll forgive me. But I'm sure you'll be able to work out how to do these. And I'm sure if you can't, you'll be asking me for, Angela, how do you draw that? And I'm quite happy to show you. But it is just variations on a theme. My mind is working here. And I have a piece of paper ready to show you some things perhaps. So this is a piece of, actually it's Clairefontaine mixed media paper. It's called Paint On. I like this paper particularly. It's quite white. It's got a fairly rough surface, so micron pens don't like it very much, as in they get worn out quite quickly. But I like the whiteness of it, and it actually works really quite well with watercolour, would you believe? I have more luck with watercolour on that paper than I do watercolour paper. Why? I don't know. Perhaps it's because the watercolour pigments don't sink into the paper as quickly as they do on watercolour paper. And it's easy to work with them, move them, it stays wetter a bit longer. I don't know. I just seem to have more luck with it. It's not that I'm very good at it anyway, but I'm wittering. And I've been using gel pens to draw with. These are vintage coloured ones. I've got 07s, an 07 one by Arteza, and the line is, it's a little bit thicker than an 05 micron line, but it's not as thick as an 07, 08 micron would be. Not that there's an 07 one that I'm aware of. And I've got the Sarasas in the 05. I'm not sure if they do these in a smaller size now. I'm going to have to check on that, because I know that the Zebra pens often have pens in finer tips. If they do, I'll be snaffling up a set of them, I can tell you, because I love these vintage colours and I don't use them for drawing often enough. But today I thought it'd be quite nice to, because this paper I've coloured with distress ink, and I've used a mixture of tea dye and vintage velvet, no, antique velvet, Victorian velvet, there we are, with some rusty hinge around the edges, and it's got that this I just thought this colour would go rather than black. Something is a bit of a change. They are waterproof, I've used them before, and they do not shift with water once they dry. So I can, if I want to use watercolour or water-soluble media with this, I sure as heck can without shifting it. So this is the original fragment for today. It's X7 in the primer from Zentangle, the book, pronounced by them as Primer. It's American, over here it's Primer. And so it's the way American and British English differs often, is how the emphasis we put on words and how we pronounce them. If there's an E on the end of a word, I'm trying to think, is it the vowels actually before it actually sound like the vowel, like you don't say I, we say I. So primer is that long letter, not primer, because that would be prim. Doesn't have an E on the end of it. So if you're wondering, and other things, it's like the way that words are broken down into pronunciations, and I can't think of any at the moment. As an example, they'll come to me, and penny dropped is just how words are seen and spoken. It's interesting. I just find it interesting. I'm not saying it's wrong, it's just different, and it's how things are done in a different country. So I'm going, Primer, what's Primer? Primer and properer, because that's what it would be, prim and proper. is what we say. If something's prim and proper, it means it's, yes, it's prim and proper, exactly as, you know, polite and good, and, you know, somebody's behaviour is prim and proper, it means they're polite and they're well behaved and, you know, speak correctly and so on. So yeah, so primer, it's a primer. And I saw it and I went, oh, primer. Yeah, I know. Anyway, enough of that. I witter. I tell you what, I'm in a terribly wittery mood today. I do No, I'm not going to apologise. I am in a wittery mood. And so it is what it is. So this is the fragment that's called X7 in the primer. I'm not sure if it was originally a square fragment that is X7. I'm almost positive it is, but here it's been done in a round format, which actually suits it. This would be X7 in a square format, because I started with the circles and worked my way down, because I was looking at the circle and I thought, oh, what can I do with that? Well, it turns out quite a lot. Some a bit more successfully than others, perhaps, but it's only just a few variations on a theme here. So this is the original kind, the one. Next one is just simple, just a single aura around that central rice shape. So here we are, I've got this. I'm going to get one of the Arteza pens out. I've got a green one here, luckily, because green will go with that. I've also got my glasses to the side of me so I can see what I'm doing better. So it's really quite simple. It's a circle, like that. And then we pop in a rice shape. In the original version, it's just a single orb, circle, seed, whatever you want to call it. And then there are some aura lines that come from the point of that rice shape in the middle, the seed shape, back and forth. So that's the original. The next door one is quite simply the same shape, but with a single aura, like so. And then instead of one seed in the middle, do you know, I did have my pencil case here full of my Arteza. Oh, they're over there. Because surprisingly, the colours in the Arteza set and the colours in the Sarasa set are almost identical. I think the Sarasas are more pigmented, so they appear a little bit darker, but that may just be because the lines are finer. But I think they just do have that little bit more pigment in them, or a slightly darker pigment. But either way, they're almost identical, so I can use them like that. So for this one, that's all I did, was instead I left out all but one of the aura lines, and then I added a row of these seeds, and I decided to pop some little dots in there just to help to bring those to the forefront. So that was quite simple. And all of the variations are based on this. So I start with that basic shape and decide what I'm going to do next. One of the variations I've done is to put a single aura there, but I also have put an aura inside that seed shape, and perhaps just pop one seed in there. Actually, I think I'll colour it in rather than put lots of lines in, because sometimes if you put lots of lines in, sometimes it looks a bit messy. So that's a different variation. Looks almost like an eye looking out of a single eye looking out of a mask on some strange monster that's lying with its head on the side. But then instead of having auras going this way, we can have them going like this, which I quite like, because by curving these lines you can give a sense of volume to this seed pod, especially if you then colour these in so they become quite intense in colour, but leave that little highlight as if there's light just glinting off. Not possible to do in the tiny bits in the corners, but there we are. So just a simple variation. Instead of doing the auras being more or less sort of parallel-ish to the that original seed shape in the middle, we've just done them almost, well, not perpendicular quite, but in a way that follows the contour lines of the seed as if they're going up and down. Something else that was fun to do was to make this section quite thin. Still going to pop that in and put an aura here. I do like to pop an aura around things if I'm going to add pattern or anything else outside. Now on my version, I'm going to do this one. On my version, I've put an aura around it, but I think what I'm going to do here is put an aura inside. So I can pop loads of little seeds in there, or just colour this in black, or put one seed in there. And then here I'm going to put some petal shapes, if you like, or arches coming here, and fill those little gaps in, because that helps these to stand out. And what this does, if you look at the shape, it's not straight up and down. I'm actually making the outer bit wider than the inner bit, because that helps them to bend around, and it also gives that feeling that, again, it's that feeling of dimension, and it's almost like they lead your eyes into this, as if this one looks a bit strange. It looks almost like this is sat over these and these are going beneath it, as if they're disappearing into the background. So just simple lines without any shadow can actually get your mind, or play tricks on your mind. Okay, another one that I particularly liked doing, and here I am making that shape quite broad and wide, that inner shape, because I want some more space in that area. And I'm just going to pop these auras in. On that side I'm going to make them single lines. On this one I'm going to break those lines up. This puts a bit of a highlight, or a sense of highlight, in there. And I am going to, I think in this case, I am going to pop that aura in, and I am going to pop a single seed in here. Now if I made it circular, it would take up too much space for what I want to do, so I've made it more squashed downwards a bit, so it's short and wide is what I want to say. And then I'm going to follow this around, and I'm going to pop a muka in there, and I'm going to do the same at the bottom, but I'm not going to start this side. I'm going to start from the opposite side and pop a muka in, and then I'm just going to colour these sections in. I could have put small seeds in there, round seeds, round orbs, but I've chosen not to. And then just to help this look like a seed or something else, I'm just going to pop a little circle in there. So that is one of my favourite ones from all of this. The other one I particularly like is this seed, and I'm not going to add any more detail to this. Then I'm going to start to draw a spiral, but when I get towards the middle, instead of carrying round inwards, I'm going to retrace, go backwards, and create that kind of curly shape. I suppose it's like a muka, but without going circular on the end. It's more like Hollis, I suppose, if you're familiar with the Zentangle pattern Hollis. And I will just pop an arc on the outside. The one other thing that I started doing here as well is that sometimes, I don't know if you can see, some of these got rather busy, and so I put an aura around them completely. But what I could have done instead, and I'll show you, and this has led me to think about something else. So just imagine, because I'm not going to spend ages drawing the Knightsbridge again, just imagine this is really busy here, and I will do it, but I'll do less of a less complicated Knightsbridge perhaps than there. I'm going to do curvy lines so we get that sense of curvature, and then we'll do the Knightsbridge, which if you draw this really big, and you can get lots of these auras in all these squares, it would be an awesome thing to do. But it just feels that if I was to use this in a reticulum and put these close together, I just don't feel there would be a separation between them and any others around them. So one alternative is to pop a complete aura around the design. The other one would be to aura it by starting at the point and coming around and creating it like that, which gives a slightly different shape. In fact, I did this when I realised that if I did that, if I started with that shape in the middle, I could easily add auras this way. This is how I would normally draw a seed pod. But if I keep adding auras that always go back to that point, then they get bigger and bigger, and I end up with something that looks like a magnetic field. And I thought, and that started me thinking. And starting me thinking is often a very dangerous thing, because I thought, oh, I wonder what would happen if, instead of, or as well as changing what the inside of the fragment looks like, what about if I could add something to the outside that would become part of the fragment? So I could add, in the simplest of case, something like a circle there, or maybe an upside down teardrop, or maybe a right side up teardrop. You know what I mean, with the bottom side, you know, the thickest side touching. Or maybe I could add that kind of nuka shape. That changes sort of the shape of the orb, of the fragments, but it would be an interesting way to perhaps get things to join together. And I could add perhaps 4 of them, or perhaps go all the way around the outside with these instead of a single aura line. So I get almost like a petal, like a flower instead. Or seed pod with flowers on. That looks almost like a weird kind of bow in there. Pareidolia is the way, it's the term given to where our minds see things that aren't really there. Oh, it looks like looking at clouds and going, oh, look at that cloud, it looks like a dragon. Oh, it's a cloud, it's not a dragon, but it looks like it. And that's our brain's pattern matching. It's pareidolia. Pareidolia, I think it's called. which is really interesting. So I'm thinking about that. Is that something that could be done? Because those could be more awkward to put in a grid, but it would be possible to put them in a reticulum. And these could be how you join them together. It would end up like chains of beads. But if I was to put them on the sides as well, let me have a look. So we would go that way with that one and the other way there. Then you've got other points where you could join these together. I think it would be complicated because my head is thinking, how would I do that? But I do think it's possible. Circles make it more complicated perhaps than other ones. So I was thinking of that. So the square ones are, you're quite limited in the amount of space you have to fill in with pattern on the circles unless you make the inside very thin and skinny. But you can make things interesting perhaps. Or let me, if I go back to this before I say about space, is the other thing that you can do is to change how big that rice shape is. So this is smaller, but I would still want to connect it. So that gives me a different kind of feeling to the other shapes and how I add things around them. Because I mean, I think I would just add the aura around that, and then I've got all of this space here to add pattern or anything else in. The other thing I thought of was changing the shape quite markedly of that inner section, and that it's the same kind of shape, but it is very much exaggerated, so it's very narrow at the tip and much wider at the side. So it's almost like you've pinched the end of this rice shape, while at the same time you're stretching it sideways or pushing it in, in so the outsides bulge, and that will give a different kind of feeling there. What I haven't done is try to offset this shape, because I think you can offset it. Well, I know you can. And then that would be a challenge then if it came to doing anything like creating, a grid, because you'd have to make sure that you've got things, equally lined up, I suppose, or, how you rotate it and so on. But it could be an interesting thing to do. So I've just thought of that one. Squares make it a lot easier to do things with, because instantly you've got a lot more space here to do things with. So this would be, I think this is the classic X7 fragment, the square version. I'm not sure if the square was the original, I think it was. But you've got so much more space there to do things with. And you can see I've got quite a few examples up here of that. So increasing the number of balls, changing the directions of the aura. Instead of using seeds inside or the orbs inside, I've used spirals. You could use muka, you could put poke leaf in there, poke root, anything you like that will fit in that space. The bigger you draw the fragment, if I'd made the fragment as big as this piece of paper, which is pretty big, I think it's 4.5 inches, is it 4.5 inches by 4.5 inches? No, it's 5.5 by 5.5. So that's pretty big. It's, 2 inches bigger, or, in both directions than the classic Zentangle tile. Then you've got huge space to do things with this area. And if you draw your grid quite big, you've got plenty of space there to draw things in. So, you're just limited by your imagination or your creativity. And there's just so much to do. There's just so much you can do. And a variation of this I particularly like is, I've got to remember how to draw it now. I think you start with quite a big orb in the middle, and then you aura this way and this way, And then we start with this shape here, an aura this way, and aura that way. We start with the beads there, an aura this way, aura that way, and then in the middle like this, and eventually you get down to a tiny little space like that. And that's always been a favourite one of mine. I like the way the lines overlap. I'm particularly messy and untidy with this today. I'm working on a huge mouse mat, which happens to be covered in cork, which is lovely to work on with my mouse and everything else if I'm working on the computer. I have to move it out of the way if I need to work digitally though. But it's a bit too soft for my liking for drawing on, so my pen strokes aren't as accurate as they would be if I was on a hard surface. But this gives you plenty of space here to do other things with, whether it's putting lines in different directions, just adding a simple embellishment of dots, perhaps putting another aura in, then another band of dots. However you want to do it, there's endless, there's more possibility here. And of course, the smaller you draw that shape, the more space you have to work with. The other thing I had a look at with this was, instead of going diagonally, is going top to bottom, which is absolutely possible. They could be rotated, rotated to create grid patterns quite easily, and you get a lot more space here to add other patterns in with. I haven't added any patterns over here particularly. I did look at this one though, which I find quite interesting, because I drew my aura in like that, and then when I added this one, it looks almost like this bit has burst open and these have curled backwards, and it's revealing what is within. And in the case over here, I've got, some precious seeds in there, but I've still got all of this space to the other side. And shadow and highlight would enhance that feeling of them being like curled backwards. In fact, in this one over here, I've got these actually going right out to the edge of the box. But I also had a look at off-centering these. This is interesting. Let's have some pencil, where I want to make these more or less same distance here to here, so I can draw my rice shape so it joins those points there. So that creates a different feeling, and it is possible then to change the patterns to reflect them. If you bear in mind that the bottom of the next one needs to be in line with this, and these two need to touch, and you can have this repeating in columns. The next one over, you'd have to set these lines up for each column, because it would be a columnar pattern, a repeating pattern, rather than rotating them round. I think you could rotate them. Yeah, you could, but you'd still have to set this up because the columns would be the same kind of pattern in that repeat. I know what I'm trying to say, yeah, I know what I'm trying to say, and I think you may figure that one out. So lots of opportunities. The other one I quite liked for this, which isn't so obvious in, I say it's not so obvious, it's because every shape in this is the same, more or less. You don't get the opportunity, this wouldn't be noticeable. You could do it, let me have a look. is that instead of starting at the top, you start the next one down. So yeah, so that would be the equivalent of this. Yeah. So this one would be the equivalent of this one. Yeah. But you see where these start, not from the point, but further up and fairly equidistant. So it's the same kind of thing. And this is one of my favourites because you can add pattern in there, or lines, shadows, whatever you feel like doing. It's just one of those ones. You know, here I've just coloured one in and left the other one blank, as if to say, well, the world's your lobster, do what you wish. So I haven't got some of these on here because I haven't thought about these. That one's not on here. I'm just trying to pick out a couple here to help and perhaps spark ideas. An interesting, because a square gives you so much more space, I found the idea of changing this inner shape just a bit an interesting one, especially if you draw it like it's a leaf shape. It's more of a leaf shape, and then you can put that rice shape in the middle. So it's the equivalent of this one really, except I haven't, you know, yeah, it's that the equivalent of that one. And we can still put our treasure in that space. So that's quite nice how you can change the shape as well. And again, instead of making that rice shape the whole length or the whole diagonal of this, we can alter it just a bit and we get a different kind of feeling again. It's the same kind of idea though, and we can aura this and perhaps aura it down to the point. If anything, this makes this bit appear or feel like it's higher up than the rest, and shadow and highlight would certainly bring that out. Now when I was playing around down here, down at the bottom here, you can see with semicircles, and I put these are polygons. I'm playing with polygons. I thought, well, if you put them together, you're going to get an interesting shape, and that's exactly what I kind of did. And I think that's how yeah. So you know the polygon shape. You start with a curved line, and then you echo it, and another curved line. Excuse me. And then you echo that. God blimey. Pop those in. And that's where I came up with this kind of, oh, that's what that is. That's what it reminds me of. But another interesting one came up when I was looking at semicircular shapes, because I thought that doesn't really work unless I made them half and half. But what if I created a line or a boundary, and I put semicircles on each side of that boundary, along with half of a rice shape, and just pop seeds in there. It's the same kind of thing as this, except I've split this with a distinct edge. I could have done it like this, and then added these and popped those in, but I like this rod version, if you can see it there. I particularly like that, and of course the options for things to put in there again are endless. So that is a variation of that, which has changed it a little, but not as much as some other things that I'd thought of. Other shapes, triangle. Oh gosh, this one was fun. I think the best personally, I think the best option is to have this rice shape going from the point of the triangle to its opposite flat side. And you've got plenty of space here to do what you would like to do with it. I like that. I tried hexagons, and whereas you can put this from side to side, you know, from side to the side rather than the point to the point, I prefer it point to point, and that would make a lovely repeated pattern. And here I've got some variations where I tried, is it Tripoli, where you put these around triangles around, where you draw one triangle and then the next one you draw an aura line, complete the triangle. And I had all of these pointing towards each other, and then I think you're going to we'll have to repeat them, like the next triangle here, the points join is what I want to say. The point of the rice would join with the point there, but I haven't drawn enough of it to be sure. I tried doing half of these seeds on either side, and I came up with that shape, which is kind of, well, it's a rhombus, and it's a slanted rectangle or square, and you can pop the rice shape there, or if I can draw this the way I'd like to. So you've got a longer, this is a shorter distance than this one, you can do it the longer one, and that would be interesting. I haven't used a rhombus with the others, you know, yet. I've used parallelograms. I also used a kite shape. So that's where you've got two pairs of sides. So one pair is shorter than the other, and you end up with this kind of kite shape. And that is lovely. To pop that in. And it would also be lovely completed, like if you've seen the 12 Days of Zentangle, they did a variation of, is it flukes or decks, something like that, where you have a square, you've got the line there and a square there, and they just extended these to create these patterns. Well, I decided to have a look at doing that with these. So I did that with a square, with a kite, and these can be bendy, but I also did this with a hexagon, not a hexagon, a pentagon, and had, problem with odd shaped sides is where you put these, but you can create, well, in this case it's curvy crystal, the others look a bit more crystalline, but you can have that kind of thing going on, and you can do that with a hexagon. You could even do it with a circle. So if I take a circle, and you can choose to have a middle bit for it, perhaps that's where that goes, and then you can have it the sides like that. So that was quite fun. The other thing that I did was that I liked was I lost the circle around the outside, which isn't really playing with the fragments as much as this is what I like, and it's quite fun. But instead of having a circle, is to have perhaps more of an oval shape, but it would work in the same kind of way, so more of a grape rather than an orange. So lots of variations and some extra ones here as well. So yeah, I've been busy today, haven't I? And we have multiple variations. I shall tuck this under to show that I've done something, which will make my, oh, perhaps not. No. So we have quite a few variations here going on, and I've been, as I said, I've been busy. So between one thing and another, I will take a good image of these two together with something to fill a gap in, to pop on my social media. Certainly this one I will, as a reference, but there's some other ideas here. And I hope you found this interesting, and that you'll use some of these ideas from time to time and create your own, because this is not a definitive guide to the variations on this. The variations are endless. It just depends on your creativity, your imagination, your confidence. And I'm just lucky that I've got the confidence to have a go at things like this and just see what happens. Some of these I don't like. And that was a really, which one? There was one that was a really poor choice, and actually now I'm looking at it, it's okay because I've taken a step back from it. I think it was this one, but since the inks have dried and the middle one has dried darker, it actually looks okay now. This one looks so much better with the aura around it, as does this one. It's not my favourite, but it's an idea I worked with and had to see it, what it would be. The worst thing that happens is you waste a few minutes of time and a little bit of paper. And this is just not expensive paper. I think the last time I bought the paint on paper, it was about £6-7 for, how many sheets are in a pack? 40 sheets. So it's not going to break the bank, and I never worry about that. And I use both sides, so I get 80 pages essentially, because it's for sketchbook. If it was for finished work, anyway, I'm wittering. I really am wittering, and I'm going to leave it here because it's the second video I've done today. The other one was over an hour long, so I need to go and do something else, like go out for a walk. It would be good. So I'll say thank you very much for joining me. I hope you find this useful and informative and sparking your imagination. And I shall see you all again soon. Take care for now. Bye-bye. Bye.